Hi, welcome to the Round Lake Area Library's program series, Feed Your Mind and Body. This episode is about spring vegetables. In Northern Illinois, we don't have a huge amount of spring vegetables to choose from, but what we do have is wonderful. Asparagus, leafy greens, carrots, morel mushrooms, herbs, garlic scapes, parsnips, radishes, rhubarb, beets, leeks, turnips, cabbage, and peas are some examples. We're going to share with you some of the lesser used spring vegetables that are super nutritious and yummy for the whole family. Asparagus grows in this area and comes back for many years to harvest in the spring. It's a powerhouse of nutrition and fiber and very low in calories. You'll see it on everyday menus all the way up to gourmet fine dining menus because it's so healthy, versatile, and full of flavor and texture. It's chock full of folate, vitamins C, A, and K, and can help lower your blood pressure. There are so many ways to cook asparagus, from grilling to roasting to steaming to shredding raw in salads and even in soups. Today, Sam is going to show you her favorite asparagus preparation as well as a yummy dipping sauce.
Hello, today I'm going to show you how to clean, store, and cook asparagus. I will also demonstrate a quick and easy way to make hollandaise sauce to go with. For the asparagus, you will need some olive oil and seasoning, and for the hollandaise sauce, you will need 1 egg yolk, a lemon, some mayonnaise, butter, and more seasoning. When you pick out your asparagus at the grocery store, you will probably notice several different kinds, including white asparagus. You may also see thinner or thicker ones. Either one works, it's really a matter of taste. Thinner ones can be sweeter and larger ones are meatier. When picking ripe asparagus, avoid ones that are dry, woody, or have split ends. If you aren't going to cook your asparagus right away, you can store it in the fridge. The best way to store it is in a glass of water. Cut off the woody ends of your asparagus like you would plants that you're putting into a vase. This helps open up their cells so they can absorb the water better. When you put them in a glass, only put it in 1 inch or 2 of water, and then loosely cover with a plastic bag. Change the water as needed, like when it gets cloudy. When it comes time to cook the asparagus, we want to clean them beforehand. We will wash them in water, and then we will remove those dry ends. You can trim the ends, but you can actually feel with your hand where the woody, stiff part is versus the softer part that we want to eat, and you can just snap them right at that point. There are several different ways that you can cook asparagus. You can steam them, you can poach them, you can bake them in the oven, you can cook them in a pan, or even on the grill. You want to cook them until they're tender. Undercooked, they'll be too crunchy, and overcooked, they'll be mushy. For this video, I cooked my asparagus in a grill pan, which if you don't have one, I highly recommend it. It lets you get those nice grill marks on your vegetables or meat or whatever you're cooking in there, like asparagus. So I'm going to cook 1 bunch of asparagus, which roughly equals about 1 pound. And since I already cleaned them and snapped out the ends, they're almost ready to go, but I went ahead and I peeled the ends as well, just to remove any extra tough outer layer. Just the ends though. After that, I will coat them in a little bit of olive oil and whatever salt or seasonings that you like. I'm using a Penzeys brand salt mix, which has salt, black pepper, paprika, and more. But you can put on whatever you like. You can season them beforehand like I did, or you can season them once they're spread out evenly in the pan. I actually did a little bit of both because I decided I wanted more. The pan we will heat up over a medium to low fire with nothing in it, since we already coated the asparagus in the olive oil. If you want to test to know when your pan is hot enough, just put a few drops of water in there, and once the water is gone, you're good to go. Add the asparagus to your pan and turn them with tongs until all sides are browned. You want it to be tender, but not mushy. And it's that simple. Next, the hollandaise sauce. This is a really simple and quick way to make it. The recipe comes from Food Network magazine or their website, and I've been using it for years. It may not be a true hollandaise sauce because we're adding mayonnaise, but I think it tastes really good. We're going to need 1 egg yolk, a 1/4 cup mayo, 1 teaspoon lemon, although I put in way more than that, 2 tablespoons melted butter, and seasoning, usually pepper, cayenne, salt. I'm using the same spice mix, the Penzi spice mix that I use on my asparagus. So we need the egg yolk. To get the egg yolk divided from the egg white, you can actually just do it by cracking the shell in half and pouring it back and forth between the two. The white will naturally sort of separate from the yolk, and we can save that and cook it for breakfast. Put the egg yolk in a bowl, a 1/4 cup mayo, and our lemon. I used a lemon squeezer because I wanted basically all the juice out of half of a lemon, which, like I said, is way more than 1 teaspoon. You may not want it that lemony, but I did. So I squeezed that in there, mix that up with a fork or a whisk, and then I added the 2 teaspoons melted butter, completely melted, not chunky at all, until we have a smooth mixture. You can add your seasoning to that. Season to taste, and then we will cook our sauce in a double boiler, meaning we will boil or simmer some water in a small pan and put the bowl with the sauce over that. You only need a small amount of water because you don't want it to touch the bottom of your bowl. We also want the fire to be quite low because we don't want that to come up the sides of the small pan I'm using, and cook our sauce. Once we put the bowl with the sauce into the pan, so the steam comes up from the simmering water, we will continuously whisk the sauce until it's thick. It's probably less than 5 minutes, maybe even closer to 2 or 3. It'll thicken up a little more when you take it off the heat as well. The main thing to avoid is overcooking our egg. Otherwise, you're done. Enjoy!
Rhubarb is a vegetable that grows very well in this area, and it's one of the few that is a perennial, so plant it once and it comes back year after year. Spring is rhubarb time. It's highly celebrated because it's one of the first things up and ripe. When you grow food, it's a harbinger of great things to come all summer long. Unlike a lot of edible plants, you only eat the stalks. The leaves are toxic. Do not eat them. Without its leaves, it kind of resembles a magenta stalk of celery. It's full of antioxidants, vitamin K, and helps with lowering bad cholesterol. Rhubarb has a tartness to it, so it's most often used in sweet dishes with fruit. And I think we all know of strawberry rhubarb pie. I would like to tell you, though, that apricot rhubarb pie from Elsie Mae's Pies is my favorite way to eat rhubarb. But I'm going to try something new today and make a punchy rhubarb recipe for you that I'm very excited about. This is a rhubarb salsa made with rhubarb, pineapple, red onion, lime, cilantro, and habanero. I'm a wimp, so I'm substituting a jalapeno instead of a habanero because jalapenos have a much lower Scoville rating, somewhere around 2,500 to 8,000 Scovilles, whereas habaneros have 100,000 to 350,000. And I'm really not interested in crying into my salsa. First, I'll clean my stalk of rhubarb. It has this lovely magenta color on the outside, and the inside can vary from white to green to pink in color. My recipe calls for a cup of finely diced rhubarb, so first I'll chop it up into coins. From there, I'll dice it further into tiny cubes, and then throw it into a medium-sized bowl. Next is pineapple. Chop off the top and bottom of the pineapple. We usually do this with rounded fruits and vegetables to give us a flat surface on which to set it so that cutting it up is easier. From here, I just slice down the sides from the top to take the hard outer part of the pineapple off. And then I cut from top to bottom in half. And then those halves I cut again into quarters. This exposes the tough core at the center that I can then smoothly cut right off, leaving 4 sections of slimy pineapple meat. I need 2 cups of finely diced pineapple, so I'll be working on this for a bit. To save time, you can always use crushed canned pineapples and drain it, which prevents you from getting pineapple juice up to your armpits and being sticky and slimy all over. But where's the fun in that? Once I have 2 cups, I add it to my bowl of rhubarb and I move along. Jalapenos are fun to dice. First, I take the top off and then slice it lengthwise. Once in half, you have a choice, and you can leave it whole or remove the seeds and ribs where a majority of the heat in the jalapeno is concentrated. I choose to remove it because, as I said earlier, I'm a wimp. From there, I'll slice the half into thin strips, and then holding those together, dice them finely in the opposite direction and repeat on the other half. Then add that to the bowl. Now I need a half cup of red onion diced, which is about half of a smaller red onion. I do love the way the red onions look when cut up, so pretty. And then I add that to the bowl as well. Next, I need to add the juice of 1 lime, so I start by rolling it on the cutting board with some pressure from my hand to loosen it up, and then I slice it in half. I prefer to get as much out of the lime as possible, so I squeeze it as much as I can, rotating it around, and then I flip it inside out and work the inner meat with my thumbs to release all of those juices, and then I repeat it with the other half. Lastly is cilantro. I'm not a big fan of stems in my food, so I pull off the leaves and then proceed to chop in one direction and then repeat in the other to give a fine dice. And then I add that to the bowl and all the ingredients are now in. The hardest part about this salsa is the waiting, because you need to cover it and refrigerate it for at least a few hours to allow all of the flavors to marinate. This salsa gives you a burst of tangy, sweet, tart, and spicy in every bite. It's a delightfully fresh and juicy addition to your tortilla chips or as a topping on your tacos, chicken, or whatever else you'd like to garnish. I did find it was lacking salt for my taste, so test it out yourself. Once I added crema or avocado, it was the perfect bite of a rainbow of flavors. Leeks are in the allium family, which also include all types of onions, garlic, shallots, and chives. They look like overgrown green onions with long, woody green leaves that we do not eat. What we do eat is the thick stem, which is so wonderfully fun to use. They have a mild oniony flavor, are considered a superfood for all of the vitamins and flavonoids they impart, and aid in weight loss due to the high water and fiber content to make you feel full without a lot of calories. And they look so pretty. They are super fun to chop and clean. When cutting leeks, you can do this in a few different ways. First, you want to cut off the woody tops and the root at the end so that you have a nice green and white tube of leek. Depending on how small you want your leek pieces to be, you can cut it into coins, or first cut the shoot in half lengthwise and then cut semicircle pieces. I really like the looks of the green and white circles whole, so I'm just going to cut mine into coin shapes. Because you're dealing with layers upon layers of leaves compressed into the stalk, dirt gets way down in there that you can't see, and the method for rinsing these is part of why I love leeks so much. This is so cool. You take a large bowl and fill it with water. Then you separate the coins that you just sliced into rings, and then you drop them into the water and stir them around a bit to loosen up any dirt that might be stuck inside. This is the cool part. All the dirt and debris will settle on the bottom of the bowl, and your leeks will remain floating on top. So you just have to scoop them out all shiny and clean, and you're ready to go. Often there's a little pile of dirt and sand at the bottom, which just fascinates me. There's so much to love about leeks. The most common use of leeks is in potatoes and leek soup. But I just made a potato soup for you in a recent program, and it's a little bit heavy with the warmer weather. So this time I'm going to do a spinach, leek, and ditalini soup. The ingredients are simple: a leek, a few diced garlic cloves, half a bag of frozen spinach or a full bag of fresh spinach, 4 cups of broth. You can use chicken broth or veggie broth to keep it vegetarian. Your favorite spices. I use salt, pepper, MSG, and thyme. 3 tablespoons of butter or whatever fat you choose, and about a cup of ditalini pasta. You could really use any of the smaller pastas or skip the pasta and add a can of your favorite beans, but something starchy is good. You could even add tortellini if you wanted it a little bit heavier. In a large pot, add the butter and melt it down. Then add the cleaned and cut leek. I left mine in rings because they were so pretty, but some make for a big bite, so feel free to cut them down to smaller sizes for the soup. When they start reducing and softening up, add the garlic and cover for a couple minutes to saute it all together, stirring it frequently. While they're still soft and translucent, but before they start to brown, add the stock, the spinach, the spices, and the pasta. At this point, I cover it again so that all the water doesn't disappear, concentrating your soup down to a salty brine, and I let it simmer for however long it takes the pasta to cook, stirring frequently. If you find that your broth is too scant, add some more water and taste it to see if you need to add more seasoning. Taste it often. Err on the side of caution with the salt, because if you add too much or your stock comes salty, you won't be able to combat that unless you add a lot of water and maybe something else to absorb it, like potatoes. You can always add more salt, but you can't take it back. And there is a bright, green, springy, healthy soup with seasonal ingredients. If this soup isn't your cup of tea, so to speak, use your leeks in place of onions in your favorite recipes and see how it goes. They're very versatile and delicious. Hopefully we've given you some inspiration to use for those lush spring veggies that are available at the store, at the farmers markets, or to grow yourself in your backyard for future meals. Spring is such a great time of year, and the bounty of fresh ingredients are exciting if you are daring enough to try them. We thank you for your time, and we'll see you next month for part 1 of our Rainbow series, including foods that are red, orange, and yellow.